We begin tonight with a Fox News alert. Officials are still trying to determine what caused Egypt Air Flight 804 to crash into the Mediterranean Sea early Thursday morning. Welcome to Hannity. I'm Tucker Carlson, sitting in tonight for Sean. Search crews today located plane seats, luggage, and sadly human remains from that downed jetliner. We're also learning tonight that according to the Aviation Herald, there may have been a fire on board the aircraft. Smoke alarms went off just before it fell from the sky. Joining us now with the very latest from our London bureau is Kitty Logan. Kitty.
Yes, the Aviation Herald website has published data which it says was transmitted from the plane via satellite during the final minutes of the flight. Now, this data indicates a smoke alert in the toilet and in the avionics compartment. And an aviation specialist has told Fox News this could mean there was a fire on board which could have caused the plane's controls to completely fail. Now, until the aircraft is recovered, investigators won't be able to learn exactly what happened. Several countries, including France, have joined in the search and rescue operation, and today the first items of wreckage were discovered. The Egyptian Navy says its ships recovered personal items as well as parts from the plane, such as seats. They found human remains too, a sad confirmation that none of the 66 passengers and crew is likely to have survived the crash. The debris was discovered around 180 miles north of Egypt's coast, not far from where the last signal from the flight was picked up. Now, the next step is to locate the main body of the aircraft, something this U.S. Navy plane is assisting with. And, as always, it will be crucial to recover the black boxes. So far, these have not been located, and any data which can be recovered from them obviously will be vital to the investigation. But search efforts in these deep waters is going to take some time. And if this new data indicating a fire on board proves to be accurate, it will be a big leap forward in that investigation. But then the next question, if it was a fire which caused the crash, then what caused the fire? Tucker?
Great question. Thanks a lot, Kitty. Joining us now with reaction, former commercial pilot and aerospace journalist Kathleen Bangs, aviation expert Sal Langonia, and former National Security Council staffer Jillian Turner. Thanks so much for joining us. Kathleen, I want to go to you first. As a former commercial pilot, one of the reasons many of us assumed this was a bomb is because the aircraft dropped relatively quickly from altitude into the sea. Could a fire have caused the mishap to unfold as quickly as that?
Yes, Tucker. In fact, I've been very suspicious from the beginning about this perhaps not being a bomb, and I'm glad to see we're looking at other factors. This ACARS report, what it is there's a digital recording system that comes from the airplane, separate from anything that the pilots enter, and it goes via satellite uplink back to the company. And what that's showing is that we had a cascade of problems that happened on that airplane over a 2 to 3 minute period. So if this was a bomb, highly unlikely that these events would happen over a 2 to 3 minute period. It's not impossible for a very, very small bomb, but it does not appear that there is any breach of the fuselage, that there was a depressurization. So what it looks like is perhaps a fire near the cockpit, perhaps under the cockpit in what's called the avionics bay or the E&E compartment, that spread rapidly into the cockpit and the forward lavatory.
Boy, so fast though, Sal. No distress call at all from this aircraft. There's a lot of smoke in cockpits and planes land safely. Why could this have unfolded so differently?
And that's what's still bothering me about this. This happened very, very quickly. Whatever this was, it was very, very quickly. All we know from the ACARS report so far is that there was a lot of heat on the co-pilot side, and there was some smoke in the co-pilot and in the cockpit and in the cabin.
So the ACARS report, there was heat.
Right. It can tell the heat against the window of the co-pilot. And that's exactly what it told us. Doesn't tell us how it gets there, and of course we still need to know that. But I'm still a bit suspicious about anything natural happening on this aircraft. You had something that was very quick, that so fast that the pilots apparently weren't able to don their supplemental oxygen.
Yes.
And make a mayday call, which is number 4 on their checklist. The 4th item on their checklist is mayday, mayday. They didn't do that.
Interesting. So, Jillian, the two are not mutually exclusive. A fire could mean terrorism still. It could have been an incendiary device. Is that possible, do you think?
I think it is possible. And now, tonight, really the race is on from a counterterrorism perspective. There's a tremendous amount of urgency because any clues that can be gleaned here can be used to help thwart and prevent future terrorist attacks if it's determined that it is an attack now. What's going to happen is that law enforcement, intelligence community, officials from many different countries are going to converge around this area and start rifling through this. Immediate questions that need to be asked are, what organization perpetrated this, what individuals, and are those people still operational? That's where the time crunch really comes in here.
So, Kathleen, I don't think there's anything scarier than the idea of a fire on board an aircraft at 37,000 feet. The airline says there's no known hazardous cargo in the hold of this plane. Would they know that?
Yeah. Tucker, that means nothing. You know what was also suspicious to me was as soon as this happened 2 nights ago, within minutes Egypt Air announced that there was no hazardous cargo on board that airplane. Airlines frequently do not even know what the cargo is that they're carrying. In fact, I mean, just look at what passengers bring on board. So we don't know what could have been on board if it was in a front cargo hold, but beyond it being cargo, very easily it could have been a scenario that something overheated in that E&E compartment. It does not necessarily mean it was an incendiary device or a bomb, but you're right, it's a pilot's worst nightmare. Personally, I'd rather chance a mid-air collision than I would an uncontained fire up at altitude, because those pilots can be overcome by toxic fumes within a minute or two. ValueJet, 1997 in the U.S., from the time they first reported smoke to the time the pilots were unconscious was less than 3 minutes.
Wound up in the Everglades, of course, short of Miami Airport.
That's right.
But there are fire suppression systems in these aircrafts, no, Sal?
There are, and you can decompress some of these cargo holds. If it's in the cargo hold, you can take the oxygen out of those cargo holds. So you do have time, usually, if it's a natural fire. And when I say natural fire, I mean something that was caused by the aircraft itself.
Right.
If that was in the E&E compartment, the fire normally will not spread very quickly. It would be, there is fumes coming out of it. It was going to be a problem. But when the pilot reacts to that, they don't supplemental oxygen, and they start through a checklist of items to try to isolate the fire. Remember now, we also have moments later this airplane going out of control. That means it cut through those communications systems and the control systems very, very fast.
Physically cut through them. Something burned through them is what you're saying.
Something bad happened.
So, I mean, this, you hate to speculate. We're not going to speculate. But if this were a terror attack using an incendiary device, is there any precedent for that? Have we ever seen that before?
That's a great question. I'd have to go back and kind of look through
nothing
is jumping out at me, no, but I'd have to double back on that.
I mean,
the big picture here is that aviation security is now a global security issue, right?
Yes.
We saw with this flight, it started on one continent, ended up on a different one. We've got passenger manifest that has people from 10 different countries. One country's vulnerabilities today are 1 weak link for the entire world. We're all going to share those consequences. So it's really important to start thinking about this as a global issue rather than a Middle East issue or an Africa issue or any one region's problems. Everybody's problems here are shared.
So, Kathleen, obviously air travel is key to global commerce, and nobody wants to shut that down or slow it. That would be a disaster in itself. But the idea that pilots and airlines don't know what's on their own airplanes is really troubling and weird. I'd never heard it till you just said it. Should that change?
Well, of course, and one of the things that, a lot of aviation organizations have been trying to change is the fact that there's huge pallets sometimes of NiCad batteries and, cell phone batteries and those sort of things that are shipped around the world. And, pilots don't even know what's going into their own cargo hold sometime. And so one of the most dangerous things is just the cell phone batteries that you see, laptop batteries. Those things can start a cascade fire where one overheats. I mean, there was a flight just last month to Hawaii where a woman's iPhone started on fire on board an airplane. Imagine if that was in the cargo hold.
No,
so you could have
You really can't imagine that. I mean, Sal,
you can though, and you can imagine it as developing very slowly enough for the procedures on board the aircraft to take care of it. I'm thinking something very quick happened here, and something very bad happened in this airplane. I don't think it was something that slow type of a mistake or of an accident within an electronic device on the airplane.
Very quickly, Jillian, do you think we're going to have to wait till the black boxes are analyzed to find out?
I think so. There's no other shortcut here. I think we're going to have to see what comes out of that.
This plane's in very deep water, so it could be a while.
It could be in one of those we were talking about earlier. It could have fallen into one of those caverns beneath the floor of the ocean.
Like 17,000 feet deep.
Right.
It's problematic. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it.